Greetings, everyone. It is my privilege to bring to you today's Faithful Thursday video release. Faithful Thursdays is a diverse coalition of faith leaders, organizations, and community members who are committed to adding a deeper moral dimension to the public policymaking process in Colorado. It's my honor to represent the Interfaith Alliance of Colorado, which is one of the partners in the Faithful Thursday Coalition. I am the Strategic Engagement Director at the Interfaith Alliance, and my name is Reverend Tamara Boynton. I am here today to speak about second chances, redemption, and the importance of a clean slate. Pastor Howie Close from Woodman Valley Chapel in Colorado Springs was testifying on House Bill 1214 in the House Judiciary Committee when he said, "It's in the list." The list he is talking about is the list in Matthew 25, which says, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." It's in the list. But he just as easily could have been talking about the list from the prophet Isaiah, which says, "The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound." I love that line. It's in the list. That suggests that it's pretty important. If it's in the list, it's something that I need to attend to as a person of faith. I'm a Christian minister in the United Church of Christ, and I work for the Interfaith Alliance of Colorado, and I know full well that the list is not exclusive to Christianity. Every faith tradition calls upon its people to provide food, clothing, shelter, and care for those in need. Every tradition also speaks about the prisoner. The prisoner deserves to be visited, cared for, and in many instances, freed. What does this message say to you as a person rooted in your own values and tradition? To me, it suggests that faith calls upon us to interrogate and subvert the systems that imprison. If sacred texts put it on the list as one of the most important things to do, right up there with clothing the naked and feeding the hungry, then that means God knows that incarceration can be a dangerous tool in the hands of the powerful. It is a tool of the empire. Throughout human history, people have been put in prison. Some of the most famous biblical figures from the Christian New Testament were imprisoned: John the Baptist, Jesus Christ, Peter, John, Paul. In the Torah, we read about the imprisonment of Joseph by his captors. Today, when we read these texts, we immediately know that the system of power in place at that time used prison to intimidate and control the population. The empire was using its power to silence, oppress, target, and harm. Our current systems of mass incarceration are used to do the same: target, silence, oppress, and harm. Rabbi Shalom Lipskar writes that the Torah does not view prisons as an approved means of punishment. The criminal justice system punishment should affect direct results and benefits for all parties involved: the perpetrator, the victim, and society in general. Imprisonment does not serve these functions. It certainly brings no benefit, short or long term, to the victim. It appears to offer only temporary benefit to society, taking into account the high percentage of recidivism and the increasing numbers of people being sent away. And it obviously does no good for the inmate. On the contrary, prison inhibits and limits a person's potential. It destroys families and breeds bitterness, anger, insensitivity, and eventual recidivism. The Quran also promotes forgiveness and rehabilitation over imprisonment. Perhaps these major religious traditions took into account the stigma and unintended consequences that imprisonment brings upon the criminal, even after serving time for their crime. The modern-day prison system and criminal legal system is one of the places where we can use our faith-rooted values to resist a culture that holds people captive even after they have served their time. That's why the Interfaith Alliance is leading on the record-sealing bill, House Bill 21-1214. this session, and we hope to help people understand why this bill is so important to our collective liberation. In the recent House Judiciary Committee hearing that I referenced earlier, we also heard testimony from Dr. Robert Davis, who was pulled over in Louisiana and accused of speeding. He objected to the charge, but rather than pay a fine for something he didn't do, he spent the night in jail. Years later, that arrest, which was grounded in false accusation and a justice system using its power to intimidate, that same arrest prevented him from serving as a chaplain in the military. There are countless instances of people with arrest records who are unable to find jobs, housings, and educational opportunities because their records are public. There are countless instances of BIPOC people being wrongfully accused, imprisoned, and then later not convicted. Free the prisoner, yes, but now they have a record, and their freedom to thrive, to work, to live, to find housing, and to move through American society has been compromised through these modern-day Jim Crow laws. Of course, people need to take responsibility for what they do. And for formerly incarcerated people who are coming out of the system and re-entering society, they have. The problem this bill seeks to address is that with their records, people are still paying for their crimes years and decades after the completion of their sentence. Until we can all confidently say that Black Lives Matter, our system of imprisonment will continue to harm, not just by the trauma of arrests and unprovoked violence, but also by unjust imprisonment, and later by public arrest records that create an environment preventing the prisoner from ever being free. I will be encouraging my legislators to support House Bill 21-1214 because my faith puts justice for the prisoner in the list. The Interfaith Alliance of Colorado has chosen to lead on this bill because of our belief that the criminal legal system needs reforming and reframing. In order to create a truly just system focused on rehabilitation, we need to center the values of grace and second chances that are common threads throughout most faith traditions. If your faith calls upon you in a similar way, I encourage you to reach out to your legislators and tell them how you feel about House Bill 21-1214. Thank you so much. Have a great Thursday.